Today I'm bringing you the best Phantom Knights deck profile for the October 2023 competitive Yu-Gi-Oh format. Let's jump into it. What's up, Ocean? You got Matt here, and welcome back to another competitive Yu-Gi-Oh video. You know, the Phantom Knight archetype was released all the way back in Wing Raiders over 7 years ago. And over the years, the deck's had multiple formats where it's been a huge threat. Now, I love the way that Phantom Knight is played, especially in old formats. So I figured that in this video, I would take the 7-year-old archetype and bring it all the way into 2023 and give you the best way to play it for the October 2023 competitive format. So if you're excited for the video, then make sure to smash the like button, because at 75 likes, I'll be bringing you the ultimate combo guide with test hands for Phantom Knights. Also, if you enjoy deck profiles, combos, meta discussions, and competitive Yu-Gi-Oh videos in general, you're going to love this channel. So make sure to subscribe to the channel and help us reach our end of year goal of 2,000 subscribers. Now, with all that being said, here's the best Phantom Knights deck profile for the October 2023 competitive Yu-Gi-Oh format. Let's jump into it. So here we are back with the deck profile. We have a 47 card main, a 15 card extra, and a 15 card side deck for the October 2023 format, geared towards beating the powerful decks in the format today. We have quite a few cards here, but we're gonna split this up in terms of the engines right now that we're looking at, as you guys got a sneak peek of the last card there. But we have a Phantom Knight package, of course, starting off with 3 copies of Phantom Knights of Torn Scale, 3 copies of Phantom Knights of Silent Boots, and 3 copies of Phantom Knights Cloak, as well as, finally, the 1 copy of the Phantom Knight of Stained Greaves. Now, this engine is my preferred way of playing it. Some people are playing the Ragged Gloves, I prefer not to. So what do all of these cards do? Well, starting off with the Torn Scales, this card here has the effect where while it's on the field, you can discard a card as cost, send a Phantom Knights card from your deck to the graveyard, except for itself. Also, if it's in the graveyard, this card's in the graveyard, and if another Phantom Knights card is banished while this card's in the graveyard, you can just special summon this card out, but banish it when it leaves the field. You can get around that, though, by going into an Xyz monster with this card here to just get it back in the graveyard anyways. It is one of your best starters for the deck as far as the Phantom Knight engine goes, which is absolutely amazing. We then have the 3 copies of the Phantom Knight of Silent Boots. This is the second best one in my opinion. The reason why is that it is a free special summon if you control the Phantom Knights monster, not a Phantom Knights. It is the Phantom Knights monster, very important here. You can just special summon this card from your hand. It is an inherent summon, so it does not start a chain, which is very nice, meaning it cannot be negated by the DDD Wave High King Caesar. It does have a second effect, though, where while it's in the graveyard, you can banish this card and add a Phantom Knight spell or trap from your deck to your hand. And then finally, we have the 3 copies of Phantom Knights of Ancient Cloak. I think this one here of the 3 at the top row is definitely the worst one. Its on field position sucks. It gives an attack boost while it's in attack position and just switches it to defense position. Really not that impressive in my opinion, but the second part is pretty important, where if it's in the graveyard, you can banish it and add the Phantom Knights card from your deck to your hand, except for itself, which is incredibly powerful. And then finally, we have the Phantom Knights of Stained Greaves, the one of in the deck. Basically, it is allowing you further extension and the ability to go into your rank 4 toolbox, which is really nice too. So essentially the way it works is if there's a Phantom Knight monster that is special summoned to your field, you can special summon this card from your hand, and you have the choice to increase the level of this card by 1. You have a second effect where you can banish this card from your graveyard and special summon the Phantom Knights monster from your hand, which comes up sometimes. You also get the ability to increase his level by 1 as well, but I just don't think it's as impactful. I do think that in really Phantom Knight heavy hands or PK heavy hands, it's nice to have this card, but you don't want to see it all the time, which is why we only have it at the 1 copy. And I don't like the Ragged Gloves. I think that sending to graveyard is nice, but you go through all your Phantom Knight cards anyways, so you don't really need to have access to it in the deck, in my opinion. Then we have our next set of cards. These are our Phantom Knight monsters. We then have our warrior or our level 3 extenders. So we're starting off with, of course, 3 copies of the Kagemusha Knight. We have the Speedboard Terratop, as well as the Takatumborg. We have the Psychic Wielder and the Tracker, which I cannot find my tracker right now. I don't know why. And then we have the 3 copies of Emergency Teleport. So these cards here are really important in the strategy. You have to be able to get to your Phantom Knights card plus a rank 3 or level 3 extender, I should say. So Kagemusha Knight is amazing for that because you're basically allowed to, as soon as you normal summon one of the Phantom Knight cards or a level 3 monster in general, you can just special summon this card out. It's great because you can just overlay really easily into copies of your rank 3s, or you can go easily into something like your Cherubini. As for Speedboard Terratop and Takatumborg, these are seeing less and less play in the Phantom Knights decks I'm seeing nowadays. I don't know why. Most Phantom Knights decks, you're going to be playing more than 40 cards, much more than 40 cards, just like Dragon Link, because these decks are combo decks that play a few bricks. You're going to be playing the brick in the Takatumborg as well as a few other bricks we're going to get to later. In total, it is 4 bricks in the deck, and we have like 12 going second cards. So you really want to have access to a way to not just hard draw the Tumbor. If you do, it's not the end of the world. There are other wind monsters that are available, so you can get the free special with Terratop and the Search, as well as the special with the Tumbor, and you can get easily into your Cherubini without even using your normal summon, which is very effective. The Wielder and the Tracker are basically two copies of the equivalent card. Essentially, one is a tuner, one is not a tuner, but the one that is a tuner, being the Wielder, is nice because you can just special summon out this card if you have a level 3 other than itself, and Tracker is the same thing. Special summon it out if you have level 3 other than itself. Very powerful just to get level 3 bodies on the board. And then each heli, because these are both psychic type monsters, which is really nice. We do play the 3 copies of them. It's unlikely you're going to be bricking on each helis. If you do, we do have 3 level 3 psychics in the deck. So we do have access to ways to use all 3 of them just in case we absolutely have to. So again, these are our level 3 extenders. There are 10 of them that are really nice to have. So we want to make sure we see at least one of these in our opening hand, or else the hands get a little bit tricky in my opinion. Now you can play the dangers, but I do think the dangers are just not as good in this format right now, in my opinion. I think there's so many better options. I don't want to just be wasting all of my cards that are in my hand by going for discards on the dangers. I'd rather have other outlets for them, and I'd rather just use these cards instead. Next up is going to be our adventure engine. So we're playing the 3 copies of the Water Enchantress of the Temple. We're playing the 2 copies of the Rite of Aramasir, and we're going to play the 1 copy of the Fateful Adventure, the 1 Dracoback, and the 1 Wandering Griffin Rider. Now, why am I playing these ratios here with the 2 copies of the Rite of Aramasir? Personally, the deck is already at 47 cards. I don't need to make a 48th card. We also have a ways to get to the Brave Engine, the Adventure Engine pretty easily with the Water Enchantress, and with ways to discard it and get it into our graveyard pretty easily. So I don't need to have an extra copy of Rite in my mind. And you can always recur the rights from your graveyard with Water Enchantress as well, which is very, very nice. Now, Water Enchantress is not only going to be a starter for the Adventure Engine, it's also going to be an extender, because if you don't want to go through the Wandering Griffin Rider route, then Water Enchantress is a level 3 extender as long as you have a Brave token or an Adventure token on the field, which you can get pretty easily by just having the Rite of Aramasir. So you go Water Enchantress, pitch to get Rite to get Fateful on a token, then you have the Fateful to get the Dracoback, and you also have the Fateful to get the Water Enchantress. You can just special summon out the Water Enchantress as well, which is very powerful. So essentially, this is going to be a quick little 8-card engine to get you an Omni Negate in the form of Wandering Griffin Rider, which is great, especially because this deck has a really hard time dealing with Nibiru if you cannot get to Appaloosa in time. So having the Griffin Rider is a very big help to this deck in my mind. Now, the deck here doesn't have to run the Adventure Engine. You can run other engines itself. I do think that this engine, though, is my preferred way of playing it right now, and the reason for that is because getting that negate up before your 5th summon is very valuable, and you get also additional discard fodder, which can be very nice. We then have 2 consistency pieces in the form of Rhoda and the form of Foolish Burial. Rhoda gets you any of your Phantom Knights cards or Kagamusha Knights, and then the Foolish Burial gets you access to your Water Enchantress in the graveyard, or any of your Phantom Knight monsters in the graveyard that can just be banished for their effects as well, so both of them have their applications. We then have our Phantom Knights trap cards. We have the 2 copies of Phantom Knights Fogblade, the 1 copy of Phantom Knight's Wing, and the 1 copy of the Shade Brigadine. So the reason why we're playing this ratio here instead of playing, let's say, 3 Fogblade and then the 1 Shade Brigadine, and the reason we're playing the Wing is because the protection is really nice. Essentially, if you have Wing set, you can equip this card or activate it to target any face-up monster on the field, which means you can activate this card on your opponent's Unchained cards to stop them from being destroyed, to trigger their effects to get more advantage, which can be really nice. Fogblade is a fantastic card. These 2 share the same effect while they're in the graveyard. You can just banish them to target a Phantom Knight in the graveyard and just reborn it back, which is obviously incredible. But the negation effects on Fogblade is, in my opinion, even more important than that. And then we have, of course, the Phantom Knights of Shade Brigadine. This card here, really valuable because if you don't have any of the trap cards in the graveyard, you can just activate this card right away. Set it, activate, you get a level 4 Dark on field, which is so good to be able to start getting into your extra deck plays, not just your rank 4 toolbox, but your links that are requiring Dark monsters. So keep that in mind. I think that this lineup is really good. I was thinking about adding in the Sword because it can give Appaloosa an extra 800 attack. I would not recommend it though. I think it's not as good as those 4 traps I just showed you there. Now for our going second cards, our non-engine cards. We have 3 copies of the Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. We have 3 copies of the DD Crow. We have 3 copies of Triple Tactic Talent, and we have 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence with the 1 copy of Ghost Ogre. Now, why do we have this as our non-engine? Well, Ash Blossom is a fantastic card against so many different matchups. If you're able to Ash Blossom a Pot of Prosperity for 6, then whatever deck you're playing against is not going to have a good time with that. If you're able to Ash Blossom, whether it's going to be the Escape or the, oh my god, the other one, both the traps for the Unchained deck, those are really good to Ashe as well. DD Crow is great to get rid of the Yama or something like the Soul of Rage, even just random cards from the Purely deck that are in the graveyard that can't recur back. Obviously, you want to have access to DD Crow. I think graveyard manipulation is so important, and especially with tier limits coming back into the picture, if you can banish a tier limit name, it's very hard for them to get them back as well. We have the talents here because we want to have ways to go first and be able to just get more additional cards, also be able to just get random problematic cards out of our opponent's hand, because that is, in my opinion, the best way to play this deck. The deck doesn't need the additional draw power. It's really just to get cards out of the opponent's hand, or it can break boards really easily by taking cards, especially in the Unchained matchup, which is looking to be the best deck of the format again. And then we have Infinite Impermanence, just a good catch-all, really solid here. A little bit of not this counter synergy is what I want to use for the word, because Infinite Impermanence will be sent to graveyard, and you'll have a Phantom Knights of the Shade Brigandine, which cannot be summoned if on the same turn, I mean that it was set, if you have the Infinite Impermanent already in your graveyard, so keep that in mind. We have Ghost over here as a 1-of. It's not bad to hit certain things. It's good to hit something like the Exteriorly Noir while it's trying to get its material, but it's also really good to summon off of your E-Telly, and its effect its hand trap effect, I should say, is also able to be used while this card is on the field, which is really, really nice. So yeah, that's going to be our non-engine here. We have 13 non-engine cards. Our deck space, 47 cards, like I said before. That's what the 47 cards is. Let's go ahead and move on, though, to our extra deck, starting off with, of course, the 1 copy of the Phantom Knights of Rusty Bardish. This card is so good. It is an amazing card. It was limited for a long time, for a good amount of time, I'd say, but it came back to 3, and now you don't even need to play it at more than 1, because the extra deck space is just so tight, in my opinion. So really, what does the card do? So it has a few effects. The first one is going to be that during your main phase, you can just send a Phantom Knights card from your deck to the graveyard and then set a Phantom Knights spell or trap directly from the deck, which is so good because you're able to get a Phantom Knights Fogblade directly to your deck to get negation, which is really nice. It's also great because if a Dark Xyz monster is special to a zone that this card points to, then you're able to basically target a card on the field, destroy it. That's absolutely amazing. It doesn't be a spell or a trap, it can be anything you want it to be, which is really nice, and there's a few really good link arrows. It cannot be used for link material, but it's not the end of the world. It's a really solid card nonetheless, and you definitely want to have it at 1, maybe even 2 copies in your deck. We then play the 1 copy of the Cherubini Ebon Angel of the Burning Abyss. This card is such a good starter for the deck. It's not really a starter, but more so the main combo piece you need for this deck to work, right now at least. So essentially the way it works is it requires 2 level 3 monsters, which all the Phantom Knights are, as well as all of our level 3 extenders are. So the whole point is to get to Cherubini, because this card has a few effects. For cost, you can send a level 3 monster from your deck to the graveyard and target a Burning Abyss monster. That's cost. And the effect of it is just it gains attack equal to the attack and defense of the monster sent to the graveyard, which is irrelevant. The whole point is it gets your Phantom Knights and your level 3 monsters into rotation. If you don't have access to your adventure engine, you can get access to it pretty easily with the Cherubini, which is obviously awesome. It does have a few other effects to like protect Burning Abyss cards and other cards that it points you from being destroyed by card effects. Not too relevant in this build because I'm not playing the Burning Abyss engine in this deck right now. We then have the 1 copy of the Dark Charmer Gloomy. This is a fantastic card to play. One of the better link 2s in this deck. Here gives you 2 downward pointing arrows. Also is a dark to get into the Rusty Bardish and can steal cards from your opponent, which is really nice. We have the 1 copy of IP Masquerena, as well as the 1 copy of the Nightmare Unicorn as our link 2 and link 3 here. Obviously, these cards are very strong. They have their weaknesses, of course, but I do think that IP Masquerena is going to be seeing a lot more play in the upcoming format because we're going to have the release of the SP Little Knight, which is going to be a new card in Age of Overlord, which I do think will be a mandatory play in this deck here. So if you do pick up an SP Little Knight from your Age of Overlord openings, then make sure to keep it and have it ready for this deck over here. Moving on, though, we have the rest of our links, including our link 4s, which are going to be the 1 copy of Appaloosa, as well as the 1 copy of the Borrowed Sword Dragon, excuse me. We also have the 1 copy of Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. Now, this deck does a really good job of swarming the field, so I felt really good about having access to the Underworld Goddess to be able to just get rid of problematic monsters. Borrowed Sword is great because you're able to get over a lot of problematic threats. If you have access to a Access Code Talker and you want to play that, by all means, go for it. I prefer Borrowed Sword Dragon for right now. And Appaloosa is a win monster, so you can get into Tagatumborg, even if you have Appaloosa on the field and get to a rank 3. but also Appaloosa is a great way to get negations up. That's it for our Link monsters. Now moving on to the rest of our extra deck, we have our XCs, starting off with the 2 copies of Phantom Knights of Breaksword. This is a fantastic card to get your engine going. Essentially, it's going to require 2 level 3s. You basically can detach material from this card, target a card that you have and a card your opponent has, and destroy them. And then if this card that was XC summoned is destroyed, you can target 2 Phantom Knights of the same level in your graveyard and special summon them back and increase the levels by 1. So what does that do? Basically, you're going to be targeting the 2 cards that were attached to this in a way, and then you bring them back. They're now level 4s. You can get into your rank 4 toolbox, which is very powerful. The card itself is a good card for removal as well. Definitely recommend it at 2 copies because it gets the rest of your engine going. It's just a fantastic card all around in my mind. Eventually, I do think the card might get cut to 1 depending on what we have in the extra deck, because with the SP Little Knight, you're running out of space in the extra deck, and there is another card from Age of Overflow that you do want to play in this deck. Other than that, though, we have another level 3, or rank 3, I should say, in the Leviathan the Sea Dragon. I was really trying to play this card at 3 copies per deck, or 2 copies, I should say. It was tough. It was really hard to get it to fit to 2 copies, so I decided to keep it at 1. Most of the deck doesn't need to just keep going through its extra deck over and over, and has no way of just recycling materials from the extra deck really easily, so I felt like having 1 copy made a lot of sense. It is still a wind monster, so it gets you access if you hard drew the Takatumborg. You do have a way to special summon out pretty easily, which is very nice as well. We then have our rank 4s in the 1 copy of Evil Swarm Nightmare, as well as the 1 copy of the Raiders Knight, and by extension, the Raiders Knight, we have the Arc Rebellion Xyz Dragon. So what do these cards do? Evil Swarm Nightmare is a fantastic card to end on. Basically, while it is on the field, you can detach a material. First of all, it requires 2 dark monsters, 2 level 4 darks. When your opponent special summons a monster, you can just detach a material and Book of Moon that card. That's incredible, super good, and that's not once per turn. That's why it's basically being played. It's such a good card, really solid, and gives you a lot of interesting interaction right now. We know that Book of Moon, Book of Eclipse were really good in the format with Kashtira. It's still really good right now, in my opinion. Raiders Knight is great because if you use the Phantom Knights of Breaksword to pop itself and bring back 2 level 4s, you can get into Raiders Knight, which will then be able to get you into your Arc Rebellion Xyz Dragon, which is your main OTK tool if you don't have access to 4 bodies on board rather, for the Moral Sword Dragon. So essentially this card has a few effects that are really good, but the most notable one is the one that lets you OTK. And the final card in the extra deck is going to be the 1 copy of Zeus. This card is so good in the Phantom Knights deck, and I do believe that the new Zeus card, I can't remember the name, it's blanking me right now, but there's a new Zeus card coming out in Age of Overlord. It is such a good card to have in this extra deck as well. I would highly recommend doing that as well, and just getting rid of one of the cards here for that card as well. So that is going to be the rest of the deck. Some cards that you might say are missing in this deck. Some people are playing Dante. I don't think there's a need to play Dante in this deck, and some people are also playing a card like Downer Magician for a bigger Zeus. Also, don't think it's super necessary in my opinion. Moving on to our side deck though, we have a nice 15 card side deck tailored to the meta today. There's 1 card in here that I'm a little bit hesitant on, so make sure to just make an adjustment. It is a flex spot, of course, but I do like it for my particular locals, and this side deck will be dependent on your locals as well. So we have 3 copies of Evenly Matched, a fantastic card. Not a lot of decks put up a lot of negation, so having Evenly Matched to get rid of problematic cards is really nice, and especially good against like the decks like Labyrinth, for example. We then have 3 copies of Nibiru the Primal Being in case any combo decks are running around. Those can be very annoying to deal with, especially if you don't have access to Nibiru in your side deck or main deck. We then have 3 copies of Droll and Lockbird. This is the best way to handle all the ridiculous combo decks in the format, stuff like the Crimson Dragon deck, Dragon Link, something like the Infernoble deck, even the Mannadian deck really doesn't like Droll and Lockbird, so keep that in mind. Droll is a fantastic card. We then have our 1 copy of Harpy's Feather Duster. We have our 2 copies of our Kaijus. We have Kaiju the Lightning Strike one, and we have the Dogoran as well. I'm not playing Gamma Seal because the main reason why is if you're going second, a lot of the time you can easily get to your Arc Rebellion, which means that you can OTK pretty easily. So if I'm going to be able to just gain all the attack of a 3,300 attack Kaiju or a 3,000 attack Kaiju, I can then beat over something that's in attack position that my opponent has and go for game a lot easier that way. So that's why I want to do that and have the bigger ones here. You can get over them pretty easily in my mind anyways. And then the last card here, that is the flex card here. We have 3 copies of Dimensional Barrier. Now, I'm fine with D-Barrier. The reason I'm not the biggest fan of it is right now there's a lot of good Xyz decks in the format, and if you're going to be running Xyz yourself and you call Xyz for D-Barrier, then you're basically shutting off the effects of your own Xyz, which is obviously not the greatest right now. So just keep that in mind. It's still a work in progress. I think I'm going to make an adjustment, I think probably towards the locals of this week, but right now I am pretty happy with the way this side deck is performing, especially against other meta decks that I don't see too particularly often in my local scene. So guys, that's going to be our 15 card extra deck, 15 card side deck, and our 47 card main deck for the Phantom Knight's deck profile. I'm pretty happy with the way that the deck looks in general. If you guys enjoyed the video, if you guys enjoyed the way the deck looks, then make sure to let me know down in the comments below. If you have any questions about how the deck works as well, I'd love to answer them down below as well. And if you guys hit 75 likes on the video, I'll be bringing you a combo guide that you can really use and take and just learn more about how the deck works and what you want to do with an end board. And I'll include test hands as well. And of course, guys, if you did enjoy the video, leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel to help us reach our end goal of 2,000 subscribers. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all next time.